of people now. And here's the thing, if you join before October 30th and you mention the promo code SHARE, they'll waive your application fee, so you save even more right off the bat. I'll give you the number here in a second, but just call and you'll get a price within 2 minutes. And again, the deadline is October 30th, so call now. You'll save even more. Here's the number, 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE, 833-44-BIBLE.
As the world changes in an era of crisis, families throughout America are experiencing instability, fear, and great loss. While many are searching for answers in places of desperation, the position and mission of the church has never been more clear. It's time for us to leave the buildings and saturate the streets with redemptive hope and the love of Jesus. Saturate USA is a movement of churches and believers across America, uniting as one to reach every home with the love of the gospel. At SaturateUSA.org, you and your church can join the movement by adopting a zip code and receiving free neighborhood maps and evangelistic materials, including Jesus Film DVDs with free online streaming. Simply mobilize your volunteers, assemble your saturation packs with free materials and your own church's information, and then send out teams to distribute to homes. Let's partner together and see every zip code in America adopted for Christ. Join the movement at SaturateUSA.org.
This is Abraham Hamilton III with AFR, and we're sending Bibles. Here's Michael with Bible League International.
Abraham, here's another unmet Bible need that we're praying the AFR listening family can take care of today. It comes from Venezuela, just outside of the capital of Caracas, where women are forced into human trafficking by the drug cartel. A small local evangelical church that were fed up. They have rescued more than 100 women, and they've paid dearly. One of the members was killed in the course of trying to rescue women from prostitution. The drug cartel dragged his corpse behind their truck to send a message, don't mess with the drug cartel. But this church stays focused on rescuing women, and Bible League has been there to introduce them to the hope of the gospel. They need Bibles in Spanish where they simply cannot access them. Help us bless 4,000 Bible-less believers by the end of October. You've taken care of half of it. Would you help us get it done this month?
$5 sends a Bible. $100 sends 20. $500 sends 100. You can give by calling 800-YES-WORD. 800-YES-WORD. Or visit sendbiblesnow.org. That's sendbiblesnow.org.
God raises up leaders who follow his direction and serve him faithfully.
Reverend Donald Wildman.
Those who refuse to compromise his standards.
He's word-changing, and many people just sort of acclimated to it, and Don Wildman didn't.
Here in the Christmas season of 1976, I sat down one night to watch television. I became angry that night. I left the parish ministry and founded the National Federation for Decency.
The feature-length documentary Culture Warrior, Don Wildman and the Battle for Decency, premiering November 11th, chronicles the life and ministry of Don Wildman. It takes you through the founding of the National Federation for Decency, what has become AFA. It's a call to stand firm for righteousness and shows how that resolve can make a huge difference in our world.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Find out more and watch the trailer at culturewarrior.movie. culturewarrior.movie.
Hearing a voice but seeing no man. This blasphemer, this one that hated Christ and hated Christians and hated the way, and then he sees the light.
Welcome to In Grace with Jim Scudder, the senior pastor of Quentin Road Baptist Church in suburban Chicago. He is also the president of Dayspring Bible College, shaping the next generation of Christian leaders.
Welcome back to In Grace. This is Jim Scudder, and today we're going to see an amazing transformation. A man who was literally spitting fire at these so-called Christians, these believers in this false god Jesus. He becomes one. He becomes a follower of Jesus. What happened on this road to Damascus, where he's going to literally arrest and take back to Jerusalem in bonds men and women? I mean, he hated Christians, but he becomes one. How did this happen? Well, on the road, it says in Acts 9 that he's journeying, and suddenly there's this bright light and a voice from heaven, and the voice says, "Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me?" And we have this conversation, and Jesus is the one speaking, and he says, "Paul, stop kicking against the pricks. This idea of this goad, this sharp-pointed pole that a farmer would use to make sure that ox would keep moving. And the worst thing that ox could do is kick at it because it's going to hurt him more. And that's what Paul was doing without even realizing it. And so this blasphemer does get saved. We're going to see that here today on In Grace. And if God can save him, God can save any of us, right? So right before we get into this, let me remind you that we are coming up on a trip to Israel, and it's in February, and I want you to go with me and my wife and many others to stand with Israel. You say, well, it's too dangerous. There's a war going on. Listen, I've been there 3 times since the Hamas massacre. It is the right thing to do. I have felt completely safe. I'll actually be there a week earlier with my grandkids filming. And so this is the time for us to go to Israel. We're going to tour Israel. We're also going to have solidarity events, and we're going to be able to go see some of the affected areas of October 7th. And so we've just, remembered last week when your anniversary of that awful day. Now it's time to literally go stand with Israel. If you'd like to get information on our trip, you can go to our website and click on the brochure right now. It's ingraceradio.com. Click on travel, and then you'll see the February 2025 trip. Or you can call us at 1-800-78-GRACE.
Verse 6, it says, and he, trembling and astonished, I'm sure he was astonished, said, Lord. So when did Paul get saved? If you're going to ask me, it could have been right here. It just slammed him, and he's like, you know what? This is Jesus. He's real. He's God. I'm going to stop kicking against the pricks. I'm going to trust him. He says, Lord. Now, it could have been here. It could have been in the next few days. We don't know. But for somewhere in these few days, he puts his faith in Yeshua as his Savior. And then he has to retrain his brain. Because remember, a lot of Judaism is the interpretation of what God says. That's what they study mostly. They study the Torah, or they read it, but they really study the traditions, the writings of the interpretations by the rabbis, the sages. And so now he has to kind of go back through and reread and rethink things through, and it takes him a while to do that. But I kind of feel like right here when he says, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? I feel like that was his moment. And by the way, it didn't mean that he wasn't Jewish anymore, no. But he was going to be bringing the gospel to the Jew first, but primarily to the Gentiles. And if you're a Gentile, which most of us are, we have a lot to be grateful for from Paul. That he stopped kicking against the pricks and started to allow the Lord to motivate him in a much gentler way. So what do you want me to do? And the Lord said unto him, verse 6, arise and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what thou must do. So he's almost to Damascus. The Lord said, okay, you're going to go into the city. And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless. So we do know he had an entourage. He had people with him to help accomplish this mission. And they were speechless. It doesn't say that they couldn't speak, but they couldn't speak. In other words, they were so amazed. It says, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. Isn't that amazing? What must that have been like for all of them, but especially for Paul, this persecutor, this blasphemer, this one that hated Christ and hated Christians and hated the way and thought it was a fraud and wanted to protect his true faith. And then he sees the light. He sees the light. In verse 8 it says, Saul rose from the earth when his eyes were open. So he was blinded, and probably it was so bright he closed his eyes, but now his eyes are open, but he